It's Tuesday, it's 1 p.m. Eastern, and welcome to Advancement Live. Advancement Live is part of the Higher Ed Live Network, a series of professional development web shows and podcasts that are always free and accessible to you in our archive at higheredlive.com and on iTunes. Be part of our broadcast today by tuning in live and sharing your insights and questions using the Higher Ed Live hashtag on Twitter. You can receive weekly updates with live show dates and times by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. I'm your host for today's show, Andrew Gossen. Today, we are going to cast our eyes back into the distant past of 2 weeks ago when the third Columbia Giving Day took place on October 29th. Columbia is really doing some amazing work with Columbia Giving Day, first showing the rest of higher ed that this idea works in an institutional advancement context, and later, for the second and third Giving Days, continuing to innovate successfully. Today's guests have both played key roles in making this year's Columbia Giving Day happen. They're veterans, they've each done at least two, and we are going to hear more about this in a minute. But before we dive in, I want to give a shout out to our Advancement Live sponsors, iModules and mStoner. iModules software is the leading constituent engagement management provider for educational institutions. iModules delivers an integrated online platform that transforms how institutions strengthen constituent relationships and achieve fundraising success. iModules software recently announced their latest product offering. Actionable Insights reveals new intelligence about a constituent's level of online engagement, as well as their likelihood for online engagement for your specific institution. iModules, we thank you for your support because we couldn't do this without you. Higher Ed Live is produced by mStoner, a marketing and communications firm that works with educational institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. mStoner, we thank you as well. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our two guests for today's show. First up is Christina Sebastian. Christina has more than 16 years of advancement experience, and she is currently the Director for Annual Fund Programs at Columbia University. Christina began her career as a student phone-a-thon caller at her alma mater, Penn State. While earning her MBA, she worked at the University at Albany's Annual Fund as its director, before moving on to Albany Law School, where she did major gifts and then eventually moved over into a position of Director of Alumni Affairs. Prior to Columbia, Christina served as Director of Development for Annual Giving at Fordham University, and 2014 marks Christina's second Columbia Giving Day. Our second guest and a repeat visitor to Advancement Live is Jake Strang, who is the Senior Associate Director for Annual Fund Programs at Columbia University. Jake has more than 8 years of fundraising experience in higher education, and he currently oversees the planning and coordination of direct marketing for the Columbia College Fund and the School of Public and International Affairs. And he also works in the planning and coordination of Columbia Giving Day. Prior to his current role, Jake was with Ruffalo Cody, where he managed the student calling efforts of both Columbia University and his alma mater, the University of South Carolina. Jake is a veteran of all three Columbia Giving Days. And Jake and Christina, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Andrew.
So let's start with the results, because I think the results you accomplished 2 weeks ago are what are getting all the headlines around the country and getting advancement circles focused on this model. Could you share with us what you managed?
Sure, absolutely. As you can imagine, we had some internal lofty goals building upon the success of the first 2 years. And as you have shared, we are relishing in this moment because we are just so pleased with Columbians around the world coming together and helping us with this extremely successful third year in Giving Days.
So your total was around 11 million. It was just north of that, right?
Correct,
Yes.
correct.
And just over 10,000 gifts?
Correct.
Yes.
So that's a jump in dollars of around 3 million from last year, if I'm remembering right, but the total number of gifts was about the same.
Right. We had a 41% increase in total dollars raised and a 7% increase in number of gifts.
Was that 41% increase roughly in line with what you were expecting, or was that something that you were hoping for and it came true?
Yeah, so I think that, it was definitely more than we were anticipating. Internally, we really set a goal of 10 million for this year, and so we were definitely ecstatic when we saw us go past that mark and continue on to the 11 million mark, which was great.
How about things like the average gift size? Did that remain roughly constant? Did that go up? Did that go down?
Our average gift did go up a couple $100 this year.
Okay, and is that how you square the fact that the approximate number of gifts was relatively stable with the $3 million additional dollars in through the door?
Agreed, yes.
That's great. That's great. Fantastic. Well, congratulations. That's an amazing achievement. And I think, I can't imagine what sort of pressure that's going to put on you for next year, right?
We feel it and very excited about it.
Well, but that's a really good problem to have. So, how did the process go? Was it as smooth as you had hoped? Were there any surprises as the day unfolded?
Well, I think that every year is completely different, and so it takes a lot of planning and coordination. Columbia Giving Day is really kind of it's a year-round initiative here at Columbia, and so there's always going to be surprises. There's always going to be some changes. We try and take some different feedback from our schools and units, and really work with them to make sure that Columbia Giving Day is working for all of our different groups across campus. So it was definitely a lot of fun. We did make some changes, but overall, I think that it went down pretty smoothly.
And I think the biggest enhancement is our partners across campus that I always like to reiterate, because I landed at Columbia 5 weeks prior to Giving Day 2, and this past year, the entire Annual Fund Programs team has worked extremely hard and diligently to continue to broaden the partnerships across campus, to work with our schools and units, as Jake is sharing, with their needs and helping them leverage Giving Day to meet their ultimate annual giving goals.
Based on last year's experience, were there any particular points of focus this year that you were trying to implement to address any opportunities that you saw there, or trying to smooth out any procedural issues?
Yeah, I think that we wanted to do a few different things this year. We took a strong focus this year on looking at our international populations on different school levels. We've got some schools that have extremely strong international populations, and we saw a tremendous increase from years 1 and 2 as far as giving came from international. We also wanted to look at how we could really engage awareness before the day by creating some new programs and different ways to build awareness on social media as well as just on the page, and how we could do that. I think that revamping the page this year and going with kind of a new look and a new feel for Giving Day definitely was one of the things that we hope to accomplish.
And I would also add, from an internal perspective, is working with our gift systems closely. So you can imagine, this is such I wouldn't say a burden, but really asking them for additional time, additional hours to be able to process gifts in a timely manner. And that is something that we were thrilled. Each year we have improved that timeline of gifts being processed. And again, just are so thrilled to be able to share that.
That's fantastic. So I don't want to assume that our viewers know what the various different technical components of your Giving Day package are, so could you possibly outline those for us?
Sure. So essentially what we do at Columbia is we have a challenge match. In year 1 and this previous year, it was put forth by our trustees. This year we had over $450,000 in challenge match funds. Last year we actually had it set forth by donors from across the campus we called our Game Changers. But basically what we do is we divide up Columbia Giving Day into a number of different challenges. And our schools and units each have individual annual funds. So we encourage them to really engage their different populations through social media, through online giving. The first is a challenge match that basically is a pool of money, and if you raise 15% of what the overall day is, then you receive 15% of this pool. The second is an alumni participation challenge, where we look at how many gifts are brought in by each school or unit, divide that by what their actual denominator of solicitable alumni is, and then we rank them based on that. And then we have a series of hourly challenges, which this year we did a strong revamp on based on a few things that were put forth by our steering committee comprised of different schools and programs across the campus. We also introduced a pre-day challenge called Giving Day Advocates this year. Like I said, to try and build some awareness and really get some of those early, I guess, really just the groundswell of positive energy going into Columbia Giving Day. And so we had put up a pool of money towards that as well.
And to speak upon the challenges that Jake has shared, one of the reasons we have divided the matching funds up accordingly is that, as Jake had mentioned, each of our populations for our schools and units are extremely different. So we continuously work extremely hard to find a level playing field for everyone. So the contests are always being enhanced with their feedback to make sure this is a day where everyone can win.
So it sounds like the top-level value proposition from the perspective of a campus partner is an opportunity to drive dollars to their annual fund.
Correct.
And provide a whole series of incentives during the course of the day to sort of gamify the process and help them focus and help them engage their populations as effectively as possible.
Right.
Nice. Nice. We were talking a little bit earlier before we went live about what it's like working across a large, complex, decentralized university like Columbia to make something like this happen. Could you tell us a little bit about that process and the changes you've seen in that dynamic over the course of 3 Giving Days?
Absolutely, and I think the biggest improvement is who's involved, and with that being within each school or unit, from what I could hear or even what I saw last year, it truly was the development office. And this year, I could see very quickly that it was the marketing and communications staff member. It was the alumni relations staff member. It was a truly joint effort within each school or unit, and I think that you can see that that is much of where the success comes from, is having those conversations early. I know Jake and I visit many of the schools. All of our team, we speak about Giving Day in monthly meetings that we have, so we really incorporate everyday giving and Giving Day together.
So it sounds a little bit like people have long since conceded the fact that this is a great driver of dollars, but now they're realizing that to drive even more dollars, you've got to get the engagement folks at the table as well.
Definitely.
That's a good thing. That's a silent busting move.
I think that each school and unit really focuses on different goals too, which really works for them is they come up with their own individual strategies within the larger Giving Day strategy. And we see that that's very successful across campus. It's a great way for us to really engage. Also, just really promoting our social media and knowing that because of Giving Day, the likes on the Columbia Alumni Association Facebook page have gone up substantially from years 1 to year 3. Just knowing that we're driving that traffic, we're also providing different content and really promoting the day.
And so it sounds like that's then a sort of a chicken and egg phenomenon, and that you drive traffic to your page because of this year's Giving Day, but then that's a community you can try to mobilize on behalf of next year's Giving Day next year.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Nice, nice. So that actually, this is a little earlier in the show than I'd anticipated bringing this up, but let's talk a little bit about your online ambassador program. Mm-hmm. Jake, I think you were on an Advancement Live show last fall when we were talking specifically about the emergence of platforms like Social Toaster that actually make it possible for you to recruit online advocates from your social communities.
Definitely.
And at that point, you were using Social Toaster. Are you still using that tool?
So we are. Last year, the way that it worked was we launched a pilot program for Columbia Giving Day just called Giving Day Ambassadors. And we really just wanted to see if this would work, if it would take off, if our community was interested in having some real online ambassadors that could share our content. And so we engaged Social Toaster. At Giving Day, I believe that we had 84 online ambassadors that reached over 73,000 within their network.
Really? Wow.
Since then, we've actually transitioned our Giving Day Ambassador program over to our Columbia Alumni Association partners. They've rebranded it. It's called Columbia Social now, and it's a year-round program that they actually do. I believe that they're up to around 500 ambassadors at this point. So their network reach continues to grow, and they continue to be, really sending out content, sharing great content with all of the ambassadors throughout the year, obviously driving up to Columbia Giving Day, but encouraging the current ambassadors to recruit more. This year we did some promotion along with Giving Day as we're sending our communications out, encouraging people to go on and sign up to be Columbia Social members and really take advantage of kind of being the Columbia insider before anything really happens on the day.
And Giving Day is such a springboard because I know we were looking at numbers with the Alumni Association staff, and they had approximately a little over 300 ambassadors for Columbia Social. So Giving Day really gave that boost that we're looking for.
So the people who are now handling the social ambassador initiative are the people who are running the social communities, the community managers on a daily basis.
Exactly.
Okay, well that makes total sense because they're spending 365 days a year talking to these people, and they know them pretty well, presumably, right?
Right.
Exactly.
And then that takes that burden off of your shoulders, so you can then focus on getting the right communications to the ambassadors so that they can then spread it out in as strategic a way as possible.
And they, they're working constantly year-round about different communications, be it events, be it, just fun facts, different things to really engage the Columbia community. Obviously, coming into Columbia Giving Day, we work with them extremely close just about the messaging that we're looking to use, the promotion of the day, what we can do during the day to really share the message, the updates about how the day is going. And then also, we always utilize our Columbia Social members, or Giving Day ambassadors, as they were called last year, to really just thank our communities, knowing that they reach an audience that we potentially don't have with our current Facebook pages that we have across campus, but also the Columbia Alumni Association. I think that it's a great way for some peer-to-peer outreach and just stewardship on behalf of their networks.
And I would also like to highlight the Columbia Alumni Association staff, who really also lend support to those schools and units who have social media managers. Not everyone does, and those who do also look to some guidance for Columbia Giving Day activities, and it was really nice to see that relationship build.
I think, Jake, you mentioned last year that some of the most effective ambassadors were actually people who live in pretty, relatively speaking, remote areas internationally. Is that still holding true?
It is. From what I believe, and I have not heard the final, with Social Toaster, there's a gamification strategy that you can acquire points based on likes and shares and other posts and things like that. But I know that last year our #1 ambassador was actually from Thailand, and I believe that this year, well, I know for a fact that that same ambassador is still very much involved creating organic content. They actually made their first gift last year on Columbia Giving Day, and then again we're a repeat donor on Columbia Giving Day this year. So I know that they really enjoy it. The great thing is that since then, since they've been identified as this outstanding person, some of our alumni relations and development staff from their specific school have been able to reach out to them and actually connect personally, which is great for relationship building with an audience that we typically would not be able to because they're so far away. So I think that it's been extremely exciting, and as the CAA develops Columbia Social more, it is becoming more international, not just here in New York or across the country. Last year with Giving Day ambassadors, I know that we had 7 different countries represented within those 83 people. This year I don't know what they're up to currently, but I know that they have improved and acquired more countries and more ambassadors across the world.
So it sounds like you're managing to drive both international giving and international volunteerism.
Definitely.
That's fantastic, especially given that so many places are investing so much time and energy in figuring out how do we interact with our international alumni in meaningful ways.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it's sort of a multifaceted solution to that particular problem. Before we move on, one question about the content. You mentioned that this particular person was spending a lot of time and energy crafting original organic content to push out on behalf of Giving Day. That suggests that you're not micromanaging the messaging too much. You're giving people the latitude to speak with their own voices and really be full-on advocates as opposed to just microphones who are amplifying what you're saying centrally.
Sure, and it's the way that the Social Toaster platform works is that all Instagram content is completely organic, and so that was where this ambassador really shined. But they do also, all of our ambassadors have a way to basically post without anything being sent from the university, and that's definitely something that we encourage. Is while it's great that they're sharing the content that we're providing, it's also nice that they are taking it into their own hands and really crafting it and becoming personal with the way that they share.
Was there any sort of anxiety that they might write things that aren't in keeping with the tone of the event, or just the general social media anxiety that what if somebody says something bad?
I think that that's always there, but at the same time, knowing that these people that they've signed in, they've been the ones that have self-opted into your program. And so obviously they have a strong affiliation for your institution, and they're people that want to share great content and let everyone know about the great things that their alma mater is doing. So I think that that's one thing that you definitely realize with these great ambassadors.
And something new this year, Andrew, because of that very point, we actually had a hotline for our staff to call should they have needed any assistance responding to any social media posts or tweets or have any questions. The good news is it wasn't necessarily used, but sometimes those resources are just wonderful to be able to share and help support everyone should they be needed.
I couldn't agree more. Just having a plan in place means you're not likely to have to use it, right?
Exactly.
So let's take a step back. You mentioned that Giving Day has become a year-round activity at Columbia. Could you tell us about the planning process? And let's sort of do this at various different points in time as you move towards October 29th. What were you thinking about and talking about roughly a year ago from now as you were getting ready for Giving Day 2014?
Sure, and very much the same point of where we are this year. I think it's important that we do celebrate our success as well, because we know how much time and energy it takes to execute something so robust. And I want to make that point that we talked to the team about enjoy this moment, because we are also extremely excited and enthusiastic to begin our planning. And that's something that is underway currently for planning for 2015. Something that I realized, because as I had mentioned earlier on in our conversation, that I was fairly new to the second Giving Day, that if we wanted to make any significant changes moving forward, we needed to do them in a year in advance. So that's something that we're really eager right now in a debriefing mode to be able to talk really honestly with all of our partners across campus, to talk about what worked for them, what didn't, what they would like to see next year, and to really gather that information and spend some time processing it and evaluating it.
I think one thing that we do for Columbia Giving Day is that in planning, we have a series of different committees that we've set up across campus that are comprised of our different partners. We have a core committee that's really driven year-round about talking about what the next day looks like and what we're planning on doing. We have a steering committee of a number of our different schools, programs, units, our alumni relations partners, the CAA, everybody that kind of comes around the table and says, okay, so what worked, what didn't, here's what we're thinking, please give us your input.
They become this fantastic sounding board. And we realize, I think the success of the years past, and this year as well, is being able to throw out a lot of ideas. And we realize some stick, some have weight, and some we can really see to fruition. Others, wow. And I will say, I remember having a silly idea, thinking, let's extend Giving Day, let's make it longer than 24 hours, because we saw some initiation from our West Coast Columbians and thought maybe this is an opportunity. Well, I thought, oh, did I really suggest that? And with data analysis, we saw that our New Yorkers were still some of the most powerful from that 11 p.m. till midnight time frame. And what we could do is really accommodate our West Coast and our international contributors via messaging instead of extending Giving Day.
Right. That makes sense.
Christina definitely touches on something that, as we're coming out of these debriefings right now, it's great. We love hearing all of the feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything, just about what Giving Day looked like for this year and what it's going to look like for next year. But the ideas that are coming out now, definitely some of them will make it through to next year, but there are also some of the ones that will not. And, it's being able to be flexible and knowing that, in 4 months, Giving Day 2015 may look completely different than it did, today. Or knowing that obviously in 9 months, in a year, Columbia Giving Day 2015 will look completely different than what we had potentially thought of. And that comes from a number of different things. You know, it could be that it's what's available to us as far as resources go. It could be what's available as far as our staffing and our capacity to, you know, bring on new initiatives or look at what we can really do to engage our populations. Is there something that we can interact with that's already going on? You know, we have a very strong presence with homecoming every year in our Alumni Leaders Weekend. Is there other events, you know, that we could potentially work with and potentially be a part of and bring Giving Day into that as well?
And then through the months, as you were we're walking, you know, through our timeline, the questions are continuously being asked, and our answers, you know, we're really narrowing our focus. And as we came into Giving Day 2014, you know, about that 6-month period is really defining approximately 4 or 5 of our priorities for Giving Day to be able to focus on that. So refining throughout the month.
Okay, so by 6 months out, you've got a pretty good sense of what you're trying to accomplish with the next version?
Right.
And I think that it's also, you know, even building up to the day, getting closer, it's you know, really making sure that those ideas are finite and that they're ones that we want to stick with. And, you know, what can we do now to take them from the idea form to actually rolling them out and implementing them? And that's when I think that, you know, the real excitement really starts is, okay, so who do we need to engage? Who would be a good partner to work with on this? Should we work with this school because they, you know, have a strong international population? Should we contact, you know, our friends at Alumni Relations because they've got, you know, a September calendar that's going on of different events that are happening? Working with, you know, getting the website updated, getting, you know, the different look of Giving Day changed, and then just putting all the pieces together. You know, obviously our marketing communications team are really, you know, our partners as well, and they're doing things on their side about, you know, what can we do to put together social content? What can we do as far as, you know, video content? And, you know, what do we really want to see out of Columbia Giving Day that really engages our population and drives them to give as well? Great.
So you're working on all of that, and it sounds like that would be the sort of stuff you're still working on even 3 months out. You're beginning to take a lot of these things that you've collectively decided make sense, and now you're beginning to put the pieces in place and refining them and iterating. And then by a week out, are you pretty much ready to go, and you're just developing all the plans and making sure everybody knows what's going to happen when?
Absolutely. You know, within that week out, we have, you know, all our ducks in a row. You know, we have tested. We know that we full steam ahead on just what the schools and units may need, but also it's a time for us to look at our infrastructure. And as we mentioned, you know, staffing, our facilities team, our operations team. You know, as Jake had mentioned, we do dedicate at least 2, and actually this year 3 specific rooms within our Columbia Alumni Association or Columbia Alumni Center building for some of the work that we do. So it's also, you know, checking in on those partnerships that happen more that last month, just to make sure all systems are go.
We also look at it, you know, we really take a different phase approach to this year. We had, you know, rolled over a brand new website at the beginning of October and a brand new look for Giving Day. So obviously that's still happening and testing. And then we brought out a pre-Giving Day advocates program this year to try and engage that groundswell and really get people talking and signing up to be a Columbia Giving Day advocate, which was one of our challenge matches. And so that started on the 15th. And so, you know, going into the actual week, we've got a lot of things that are building up throughout the month, and then finally we get into the final week, and it's, okay, what questions are still being asked? What can we do to really make sure that we're on track, on board for a successful October 29th? When I say October 29th, I'm also going to say 28th and 30th, because obviously it is a 24-hour event, which means that it's probably more than a 32-hour event.
So tell us what the day itself is like. You go live at midnight Eastern time?
We do. So the switch flipped at midnight, and we know that, you know, there's a room full of staff members. There are also many more watching from their homes, and, you know, we were thrilled. It was a seamless transition to actual Giving Day, and that, you know, in such a moment that I want to share that many other institutions and organizations, as they're planning their giving days, it's a real moment of pride. That's something that I really saw the second year in Giving Day as I had come on board, and also throughout the great work that we've all done. But just to, celebrate with our colleagues that, wow, we're here. The moment we've all been waiting for is here, is upon us.
It's funny because I think that looking at the day of, we always joke that we kind of have what we call the Eagle's Nest, or the headquarters or something like that, because we do have one large room, and so we start off with staff that comes in at 10 p.m. the night before, and they'll work until the morning hours, making sure that everything is being flipped over, everything's ready to go, testing that the website is completely functional, that there's no hiccups or anything like that.
We have some of our hourly challenges in the wee hours of the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so
and it's primarily aimed at potential donors that are out there in Asia?
Absolutely, and as well, for us, something new that was added this year was a midnight hashtag challenge, and that we were very eager. It was from individuals, Michael Reed and Jake Strang had shared, let's start out with something that really promotes the social channels and fills that, so as individuals are logging on when they wake up, there is such wonderful content already available.
Right.
So,
that makes total sense.
Talking about you had mentioned the early morning challenges. We did have some international challenges that were focused on, time zones that maybe, New York isn't awake at 3 a.m., but we do know that we have Colombians across the world and that we want to engage them as well. So we did start the day with some international challenges to really start off giving to those different areas, and our schools really embraced that. We had schools that reached out to their international populations and said, hey, if you're going to make a gift, please make it during these hours in your time zone. We also had one school that had a completely international focused challenge, and so they had a challenge specifically within London, and then they had a challenge specifically between countries that were given to see what regions of the world really were coming out of their population. So it's really interesting to see, and then you kind of get into, okay, New York's now waking up, the East Coast is waking up, then you start to see Central coming in, then you see the West Coast, and it's just, it's exciting, and we've got new, fresh people coming in throughout the day. Everybody stops by and says hello and just kind of, cheers everyone on. There's a lot of coffee.
Yeah, a lot of coffee and food. I had spent some years in event planning, and I know the staff have smiled with me, but we're very appreciative that we did have meals planned so that those who were here working so diligently could take a 10-minute break and walk to another room and have lunch. Or
the gifts start coming in pretty much right at midnight?
Excuse me?
The gifts start coming in right at midnight?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And we see that, just across the board. The great thing is that we do have these hourly challenges, and the reason why we set the hourly challenges the way that we did is because we see that those hourly challenges really do drive giving. So, for instance, when we have a most donors challenge at I think it was at
10 and 4.
10 and 4, it's because we know that people, for the most part, have just gotten to work, seen that Giving Day is happening, and they're going to make their gift during that hour because they know that it counts. When we see that, at 4 p.m., people are kind of wrapping up their day, and this is just some of the data that we've gotten from previous years that we're able to really incorporate this year.
Those analytics are so important. We each year are tracking dollars and donors by hour, so we have a sense of how impactful some of the challenges are. Some are just nice to have to keep the momentum throughout the day, but others are really tied to patterns, as Jacob mentioned, that we've seen in past Giving Days.
And some are just fun,
Do you have access to that data in real time, or are you doing sort of retrospective analysis once the day's over?
So both. Obviously, to be able to call a most donors challenge, we have to have that access in real time, and that's something that we do have available to us. To be able to say, what the 29th Giving Day hashtag is, we have to be able to, really engage our partners at Marketing and Communications to really be combing through those social media channels and finding out who it was. But the thing is that the real analysis, I think, does come afterwards. because that's when we can really dig into the donors and we can see, what our retention rates look like, what our acquisition rates look like. Did we increase in our friend populations, and who's really giving to Giving Day, and who's being engaged by this?
And that's where we are.
Okay, so you're in the process of doing that right now.
Absolutely. Especially we have or will have 3 full years of data, and we're able to make some assumptions going into this year with what we had seen happen previously. But specifically, as Jake had touched upon retention, collectively we saw last year that our Giving Day donors retained at a 4% higher than our everyday donors. And that's not from Giving Day to Giving Day, that's Giving Day to any time the following next fiscal year. So those are measurements that you can imagine we are very eager to do a deep dive in.
Well, and now if you've got 3, all of a sudden, that's a trend, right?
Right, of course.
We like to think so.
Yeah.
Are there other things like that you're particularly interested in? I mean, I could imagine maybe you'd be interested in international alumni giving percentages or young alumni giving percentages?
Definitely both. One of the things that we did this year was we took some feedback from some of our schools that said that their young alumni populations really got behind Columbia Giving Day. And so that was something that we really wanted to engage this year. We had 2 different challenges that were for young alums this year, and we strategically posted them, with events too. We knew that we had a large population of our young alums coming together for a happy hour in the New York area and then in the San Francisco area. And so we were able to kind of structure some of those around that just to make it fun. And while they're at this happy hour, they've got the leaderboards up and everybody's
on their mobile
watching
device.
It. And, having that ability to take gifts on a mobile device is just so crucial. And it's having that giving form to be able to be mobile for that day really makes a huge difference on our results. And so I think that that's a great strategy as well.
So I really love the notion of having these large events in major cities that are synchronized with this. In that scenario, is the assumption that if people want to give while they're at the event, that they're going to give on their mobile device as opposed to having somebody there with an iPad and a Square adapter or something like that?
So because Giving Day is, basically completely online, we do have an inbound call center, but at the same time, what's happening is that yes, they're giving on their mobile devices. I believe this year at the New York Happy Hour there was a giving bar that I think they had, some iPads or laptops or something of that nature set up. But in order to be counted for Giving Day, they must give on the Giving Day site, and so that's the thing, is to really get that on there. And it's nice too because as they're watching the the leaderboards and the overall count clock reset, I'm making my gift of $20 as a young alum, and then all of a sudden I look up and there it is already on the board. And so it's great to be able to see that in real time, and then also to see that my school's now moved up into number 2, where they've fallen to number 2 from number 1, and so really to kind of see the difference that my gift is really making that impact.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the counting, gifts have to be made on the site during the 24 hours that the day is operational, right?
And we do have a pre-give population. Our loyals, our VIPs, each school or unit really denotes that own population. We qualify that to be able to allow those who are making stock transfers or wire transfers a few more days leeway to make sure they're in there.
Mm-hmm.
But then those folks are giving earlier so that the cash is in the door on Giving Day?
Correct. So there is a 2-week early give period.
And the main thing too is that this really helps us to make sure that the gift is there, because we know that our donors want to be a part of Giving Day and they want that gift to come in, and it still has to be given to an annual fund. It has to be to unrestricted funds for that school or unit in order to be counted in the dollar challenge.
Cash in hand on the 29th. No pledges.
Gotcha. As far as you know, are there any colleges that are securing commitments in advance and then sort of waiting until the right moment on Giving Day to tell the donor to pull the trigger and enter the gift?
I think that every college and unit has their own strategy, and they do reach out to their donors, and they, will say that, we'd like for you to make your gift on Giving Day. I don't know that they're specifically saying that, at 4:31 we're counting on you to go in and click process on that credit card gift. But I know that, they do reach out, and they do say, Giving Day is coming. It's been interesting to see because it's really changed our solicitation strategy as a university. We're able to move more giving into the fall, so that way we can steward our donors for longer and potentially go back for a second gift, or really speak to them and see what they're interested in doing, because we're doing it earlier in the year. And that was one of the main goals of the original Columbia Giving Day that we've been extremely successful with.
And we also know that Giving Day is just one tool in our toolkit. And Giving Day is not for every donor. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud and on camera, but that is something that, we, as Jake had mentioned, this is a really nice springboard, creating an urgency in October. We then have calendar year end, and then we have fiscal year end. But this is a wonderful opportunity to see some of that momentum shift.
That's great. Can you tell us a little bit about the communication strategy for the day of itself? It's occurring to me that, so we know you've got your social ambassadors who are active, and many of whom are operating as sort of free agents. But then if you've got all these challenges, how are you getting reminders about these challenges in front of potential donors throughout the course of the day? And how much of that is centralized, and how much of that is totally up to the participating colleges?
Well, it's a little bit of both. We are posting to Facebook, to Twitter, to Instagram throughout the day. One of the things that we do have on our website is, if you look at the Connections tab, we aggregate every single hashtag Columbia Giving Day post onto the Giving Day tag board. So basically what that does is that allows us to really see, who's talking about us at what point. But it also allows the Columbia Alumni Association and also the individual schools to post and say, hey, the School of General Studies just fell back one spot. Yes, alums, where are you at? Or something like that. And so that's a great way. After you make your gift on the Giving Day site, immediately you have the option to share that you've just made a gift on Facebook and Twitter. So that's something that we always encourage everyone to do. And we do train our volunteers in advance to reach out to their networks on Giving Day and try and get them to post and share. But really, the communication strategy is we do have posts that we expect different schools and units to go up with. But we're also sending emails.
Right, and to rewind, we start much of our communication strategy in early October, so we still believe in the multi-channel approach and send a postcard to a majority of the population. That comes from central annual fund programs. We also, as Jacob mentioned, the day of posts have basically a 5-email that promotes beginning 3 weeks prior to Giving Day, that schools can opt in for this. Some do some of ours and some of their own. So it's really being flexible, that those schools who may be in staffing transitions or don't have dedicated individuals to be on top of social media, that they are still getting something about Giving Day.
That's so people have the option of being part of the central push.
Right.
Definitely.
But they can also do their own thing if they really feel strongly that they want to do this themselves.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we did this year that was a little bit different was, because we had a pre-event competition going on for how many schools could sign up the most advocates. Basically, we just asked our schools to go out, reach out to your populations in advance, have them sign up with their name and their email address, and there was a challenge match specifically for it. We ended up with over 6,500 advocates, people signing up saying that they were going to back Columbia Giving Day. It was a great way to engage our student population and really just really start that groundswell of the movement of knowing that it was coming. But with our communication structure, we actually took these people and put them on a separate messaging stream, because these are the people that really already know about Giving Day, that we want to make sure that they're doing more. So it's encouraging them to sign up for Columbia Social and become an online ambassador. It's encouraging them to share the video that we released in mid-October promoting the day. It's encouraging them to be reminded at 8 a.m. on the day that, hey, you've already signed up that you back Columbia Giving Day. Today's the day to make your gift. So
if they've opted in, extensively, it sounds like you can hit them as many times as you want during that day without worrying about upsetting them.
Well, we still try and limit it as far as central communication. Yes, we're posting to Facebook. Yes, we're posting to Twitter, but we aren't overly emailing the population during the day.
We had sent one to the vast population, one email the day before, and then one on the day.
And then we do a midnight follow-up thank you to all donors at midnight at the close of the day. That's something that's very important. We want to make sure that our donors know that we really appreciate the gift that they've made on Giving Day as soon as possible. So after we close Giving Day, after we shut off the giving option and transition the page just over to our everyday giving site, we're still in the office. We're still sending that thank you email to just let everyone know that we really appreciated it with the results that we've gotten for the day.
Is the system dynamically generating that list throughout the course of the day so that when it hits 12:01 and you're ready to start shifting gears and taking care of that, you don't have to pull anything together manually and laboriously?
Exactly.
Nice. Nice. Good. So this actually leads us into the next thing I'd love to talk about, and that is the whole issue of stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like stewardship is almost, well, I know during the course of the day I gave to 2 different colleges, and I but then it sounds like the first mass piece of stewardship specifically for Giving Day donors takes place early on the morning of the day after.
I think that it depends. There are some schools that are honestly watching their populations and pulling their lists so much throughout the day that and maybe it's because I am in the office or something like that, but I was getting emails from different schools that I had participated with and given to, on the day thanking me for the gift. But we do, I would say the first mass stewardship piece does go out, on the day, aside from the thank you that comes up after you, have made your gift.
And then we allow all of our schools and units to devise their own stewardship plans, because within Giving Through Columbia, you give to very specific causes, and many of our schools and units use this as an opportunity to activate their student population. So many, either the week of Giving Day or on Giving Day, have set up some tables with thank you cards so that they are able to have students personally thank their own Giving Day donors.
We also had a few schools that did some more technologically savvy things where on the day they had student videos of just students saying thank you that they were posting on their social media sites, that they could tag it with a post and say we've already raised X amount of money, the day isn't over yet, but here's a thank you from Andrew, who's from X school and graduating in this year.
Right.
Which is nice because you kind of keep the stewardship going throughout the day and you keep the momentum going as well.
Nice. So then what does the sort of midterm and long-term stewardship look like for the upcoming year, for instance?
So I think
a centrally driven initiative? Is that a college-by-college basis?
It is a joint initiative, I'd say. Some schools do, postcards, emails, things like that. For us, sometimes, too, we'll reference it just in any acknowledgement letters that we're doing or any potential future solicitations that, they are a Giving Day donor. We think that, these are very, as far as our donors go and our population for the day, these are really a select group. And we know that, we have gifts coming in year-round, but at the same time, these are the ones that really came on board for this one day when we try and bring all of our Columbians together.
That's awesome. So this is now 3 Columbia Giving Days that you have taken from start to finish. Let's step back from the immediacy of this year's and talk about the bigger picture. At this point, do you feel like this is a fundamental part of your annual cycle from a fundraising and engagement perspective?
It does feel that way. It's just lending to such wonderful opportunities, as we've mentioned, to increase awareness, but also dollars and donors within our annual funds across campus. I think it will be interesting as time will tell, and our community will also let us know, what the future of Giving Day looks like at Columbia. We are already planning next year's. And there's some important pieces as we continue to collect feedback from the community as to was this a success? How can we continue? We've had such amazing growth opportunities each and every year, and that's something that managing expectations all around as to what that looks like as we move forward.
I mean, obviously the numbers don't lie, and the numbers are going up, and that's about as concrete an example of success as you could ask for. Are there any naysayers? Are there any voices out there, either in the alumni community or on campus, who are still skeptical about the value of a giving day?
I haven't heard, and again, I think the naysayers, one, because we're asking for money, so there will always be a population who, may not be fully supportive of this initiative, as with any annual funds, direct mail solicitation, email solicitation, etc. But really assuming that we are speaking to the community, asking them their thoughts, and really evaluating that. So at this point, because it also is one of those opportunities that brings the campus together, especially in fundraising. How often does that happen when we, collectively are in such a decentralized operation that, we are really seeing some benefits of this? So the naysayers, maybe they were in year one because they didn't know what this great day was, but as the population is learning more about what this day, the impact each individual can have for our students, our faculty, our patient care, etc., it's a really positive buzz.
But there's two ways to look at it too. Is that we still have donors. Giving Day isn't for them, and we understand that. And you're always going to have the donor that says that I give on December 15th every year, or I give on whatever date they feel comfortable with. And the main thing is that they're still giving, and that we're still engaging them, that they're still involved with Columbia, and it's not anything that we're gonna say no, don't give it any other time during the year. This is just an opportunity for a fun day, and bring everyone together. And also on top of that, there is a challenge match up for grabs. There was $455,000 that went out to schools this year to support their annual funds. That was brought in by our trustees, and that's something that we can't deny. That there is an added bonus to give on this day, but it's just the fact of it's donor intent. If they want to give on a certain day, they're going to give on a certain day. If they don't want to, then unfortunately, they aren't a part of Columbia Giving Day. But we still thank them for their gift, and we definitely still want them to continue to give and to support Columbia.
Sure, that makes total sense. So beginning to wrap up here, because we're at 1:52. I know that there are a good handful of institutions that have tackled their first Giving Day, and then there's a much broader range of schools that are watching what you all are doing very carefully, and beginning to plan their own initial forays into this space, including those of us here at Cornell. What sort of advice would you give to institutions that are really thinking about tackling this for the first time, based on your experience?
Sure, and I think it's really building those internal partnerships as well as external partnerships, but internal partnerships will be your biggest boost. And it's working, whether it be a school or a department, the operations side, the facility side, the gift systems, the processing, having each stakeholder being at the table at the onset will really go far.
Also, be flexible and have fun. I think that at times when we talk about giving, just across the board and in general, it always becomes such a serious thing. But at the same, and it is. But at the same time, this is one opportunity where you really get to have fun with your community, and you get to engage them in a different way. We had an hourly challenge this year where we asked everybody to take a selfie and wearing their Columbia blue. So just realize that the day's got to be fun, and it's also got to be meaningful to your donors. And so keep that in mind. I got to reiterate the partnerships, because that's really what makes this work. Working with our Alumni Association, marketing, communications, gift systems, our schools, institutes, everything. I'm probably missing so many different groups, but that's really what it is. If everybody doesn't work together on it, it won't come together, and it won't be as successful as it potentially could be.
Well, I think those are words to live by, and I hope that those of us who are beginning to think about this kind of stuff can actually take a cue from you all and prioritize those relationships, because it feels like something this big and with this many moving parts, if you didn't have that sort of partnership and that kind of buy-in, you could really set yourselves up for an unpleasant 24 hours.
It's nice to see so many others coming into the space as well, and we're learning from all of you who are about to do yours or who have already executed your first Giving Day.
Every Giving Day is a Giving Day, and it's kind of fun for us to watch it the same way that we know that we've had colleagues that watch ours too. It's an exciting thing for just advancement across the board.
It really is. It's hard to believe that this was just I guess a twinkle in your eyes 4 years ago, and now you've got 3 under your belt, and you've got a lot of people who are lining up to figure out how to do it themselves. I think that's about as strong an endorsement for what you've managed to accomplish as anything I could think of, actually. Great. Well, Jake and Christina, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an incredibly interesting conversation, and I certainly hope that the viewers who've joined us online found it equally stimulating. We are now nearing the end of our hour. My co-host Ryan Catherwood will be back next week with a show on the topic of alumni magazines. That is sure to be interesting. And once again, as we wrap up, thank you to our sponsors, iModules and mStoner. As always, you can watch more shows from Advancement Pros on the Advancement Live archive located at higheredlive.com. Thanks to everyone who tuned in live. Thank you once again, Jake and Christina, and see you next time.
Thank you, Andrew.